I think we left off on page 15. I'm sorry that took me so long. That took me way longer than I thought. I had to pull my stream, the second stream, episode 2. I'm calling them episodes just because I'm so used to doing it that way with the podcasting. Helps me better know what I'm talking about in my brain. But I pulled the second episode down off of Facebook and YouTube. I'll put it back up later after I edit it. Um, there was just something I said in there, and the way I said it, I just didn't feel good about it. Although I meant no, like, nothing by it. It was more of a haha. I don't know. In case, like, I don't know. This is a, I keep saying I don't know. This is a adult stream, 18 plus, and I guess that I'm gonna start putting that in the streaming notifications and titles and everything. I mean, I got my profile set up to be for adults, but I don't know. It's history stuff, and I feel like I was thinking about it today while I was working, and I feel like I don't expect anyone to be interested in this stuff, but I just have this feeling that if anyone is interested in this stuff, it's probably a young person. I mean, I could be wrong, but when I started thinking about that, I guess my conscience started eating at me a little bit, and I don't want to dilute myself, but at the same time, I want to be responsible. So I didn't feel good about something I said, and I'm gonna take it out. All right, I did already read this page, but I really didn't dive in that deep on it. Um, I have a feeling that we're gonna go off into some bunny trails. We might not even get through this whole page because before we even actually get into the page, no, actually, we'll read a little bit of it. Um, these two, there's a word that I can't think of right now, and it'll pop up here. Um, but I guess if you count the Duke of York and the actual king, those were the right. Those were the first people to have like European rights to New Jersey, I guess. but there's a word, profiteers, maybe. Maybe that's it. We'll come across it, and I'll point it out. Uh, the f- I the first two English landowners of New Jersey were the two guys we're about to talk about, or we're about to research. Um, John Lord Berkeley sold his share, which eventually became West Jersey, which is mostly made up of South Jersey. He sold his share to the Quakers, John Fenwick and Edward Billington, which we get to later in the story anyway. William Penn and a few other what's the word I'm thinking of? There's a word for sneaky, but not such in a bad way, or not completely in a bad way. Anyway, William Penn, some of his homeboys, his partners in crime, um, get involved in the whole West Jersey thing, and that's why a lot of towns, street names and stuff like have Penn in it, like Pennsville, Penns Grove. Those were areas that were Major John Fenwick's, and ended up in the the hands of William Penn. Like I said in the previous stream, their relationship went up and down. Um, as we'll find out later, when Major John Fenwick came to him, the whole thing really on his end of it all was kind of, I don't want to call it a failure, but um, he he had I really think it's safe to say that he had hardships from the day that he converted to to being a Quaker. From that moment on, it's pretty much just constant hardships for him. He stood on business, and he stood on what he thought was rightfully his, but it was a losing battle for him all the way to the end of his life. And even at the end of his life, he dealt with what was uh, uh, really, it wasn't that big of a deal. Um, but it was heart shattering to him, I suppose. But I can't. I'm not gonna spoil that. That's for later, because that's when like the story gets really, really good. Uh, but the point is, from the moment he became a Quaker back in England, and all throughout the last however many years of his life, 10, 20 years of his life, was just constant hardships. From the moment he left, I'm really saying too much now, but from the moment he left England, it was just it was doomed from the start. It was doomed from the start. Carteret owned Sir George Carteret. He had East Jersey, which is made up of mostly North Jersey. And to be truthful with you, I really don't know much about North Jersey or East Jersey at all, really. Like, there's very, very, very little bit that I know about them, or its history, or cultures, or just anything of North Jersey. I'm a South Jersey boy, uh, and I know pretty much. I feel like I know most of South Jersey, but really if I can like toot my own horn and say my expertise is in the Salem 10th specifically, which runs from Oldsman's Creek, which I think is like somewhere around the border of Salem County and Gloucester County, I believe. From that point all the way through Salem County, all the way through Cumberland County to the Morris River. In between those two rivers, that's the Salem 10th. And that's when it was, well, I can't even say when it was all said and done, because he lost even more than that. But somewhere, when he came to America, when he came to West Jersey, between those rivers, Oldman's Creek and Morris River, that was what he was left with that was supposed to be his. But like I said, before he died, he really, by the time he died, what was technically, legally his was actually only just like the little town of Salem. And maybe not even that much, honestly. Probably not even that much. Most of it fell in the hands of William Penn. Anywho, so I don't know nothing about North Jersey. I know more about like Maryland and Delaware than I do of North Jersey. But I don't know much about John Lord Berkeley. I know a little bit more about Sir George Carteret because, truthfully, I mean, I think he seemed like a pretty awful man, to be honest. And that's probably going to be a rabbit hole right there. Both men, as we're about to read, both men abused their power. I want to find out how they abused their power because it doesn't explain it in this book. And I haven't really found anything online yet, but I haven't really dug that deep yet. I just backed up a little bit to page 14. I'll start with the last paragraph. The next year after this charter, which I think that was the Carolina Charter. Yeah, Carolina Charter. The next year after this charter, the Duke of York conveyed to John Lord Berkeley and Sir George Carteret, June 24th, 1664, a certain tract of land in America, hereafter to be called New Caesarea. That's like such a tongue twister. And also, there's two things I found when I was trying to figure out where the Caesarea thing came from. And I've read that because of like accent and the way words sometimes would be said, Caesarea, they just said Jersey and it sounded like Caesarea. I have no idea. And it's hard for me to believe something like that, but literally you guys see how bad I struggle with phonetics. So fuck if I know. But then I read something else that it has some tie to Caesar. I just don't know what that tie would be. I mean, I know there was Roman influence in England at some point, like really early on. I just don't know how it got from that point to this point. But if I had to believe one of them, I believe the Caesar one over the accent one. But like I said, what do I know? Hmm. There we go. My bad. Let's just look. Actually, it's been a long day. Actually, I don't. I think my brain is moving at like half speed, 3/4 speed. Nova. Oof. Caes. There we go. Caesarea. New Jersey was called Nova Caesarea because the name comes from the Latin name for the island of Jersey. Okay. Alright. I misread. I definitely did. Okay. Makes total sense. Which was Insula Caesarea in Roman times. Okay. Roman. So it's both. Caesarea means the island of Jersey. Nova means new. And actually, Carteret, I think, was the captain of that island or the governor of that island during the exile. And actually, I'm almost certain. We'll just read this, but I'm almost certain that the Isle of Jersey kind of stayed in the royalist possession during like the protectorate era period before the restoration of the crown, if I'm saying all that right. In 1664, Charles II of England gave the land between the Hudson and Delaware rivers to his brother James, Duke of York. James then gave the land to Sir George Carteret and John Lord Berkeley and named it Nova Caesarea. The name New Jersey was chosen to honor Carteret, whose home was on the Isle of Jersey. Before New Jersey was called Nova Caesarea, it was called New Netherlands, which was the name given to the region when Henry Hudson claimed it for Holland in 1609. I'm not sure why. Maybe we'll find out later, but Henry Hudson, I don't know how far he came down the Delaware River. I know he came into the Delaware Bay, but for whatever reason, he didn't keep going up that river, and then he went up north, and that's when he was somewhere around Sandy Hook in New Jersey, and then found the Hudson River. And I guess he liked that one better. Done no doubt by request of the king and through his influence with his brother. The standing of these gentlemen before the public and in the responsible positions they held, if history be true, was certainly very questionable, for the reasons hereafter stated. The first held... Well, who was the first? Who was the first one listed? Come on. Okay. Berkeley was first, Carteret second. The first held an honorable place at the court near the person of the king, but was detected in the basest corruptions and forced to resign his office. His intercourse with the Duke of York was also interrupted by similar transactions, and disgrace followed their exposure. That sounds ditty as fuck. I know to smarty pants that this probably means something that's not so inappropriate. His intercourse with the Duke of York was also interrupted by similar transactions, and disgrace followed their exposure. Ditty as fuck. And by ditty as fuck, I mean rich people freak-offs. But that's probably not what it means, and I just proved to all of you how childish I am. The second was expelled from the House of Commons as a participant in the legislative bribery and other dishonest practices. Both were notorious for the peculations, and breaches of faith wherever connected with the operations of the government. Both were notorious for the peculations. What does that even mean? Peculation is the act of illegally taking or using money, property, or goods that are entrusted to one's care. It's often committed by a public official for personal gain. Okay. Peculation. Is that how you say it? Peculator. Peculator. Or embezzler. Both were notorious for peculations and breaches of faith wherever connected with the operations of the government. Although these persons deserved other and severe punishment, yet Berkeley was made Baron of Stratton in 1658, appointed Lord Lieutenant of Ireland in 1670, and ambassador to France in 1674. I'm going to write some notes real quick. The one note I have in here already is the king did not care about the public opinion of these two guys and rewarded them greatly when they were abusing their power, all because they were loyal to him while he was in exile. He was made. He's a Baron of Stratton. In 1658. And appointed Lord Lieutenant of Ireland. 1670. Because what the authors insinuate in here, and which is probably true, is that ambassador to France in 1674. He was probably given these appointments after he was publicly disgraced and shamed and abused his power. Chances are. And I think that's what he's insinuating here. And I'm writing these dates down because I want to see if we can try to find some of the stuff he was accused of and then see when those dates were. Carteret was appointed treasurer of Ireland, and continued in that position by the king while charged with the most disgraceful abuse of office. I'm really curious of what his disgraceful abuse of office was. Because the reasons I don't like him and don't think he's a very nice person is because he owned a company that was responsible for, I think, the most imported Africans as slaves to America. And I think his company also holds the record for most slaves that died while in transport, which I think I'm gonna shoot the number out there, but I'm gonna find out for sure and say it. But I'm gonna say that I believe the number was 44,000 between a certain year and certain year of humans that perished. And that was his company, Sir George Carteret, the Royal Africa slave trade, or Royal African slave trade. We'll find out in a second. So I'm really definitely curious about what the disgraceful abuse of office was. Although I will say that Europe had abandoned the slave trade way before America did. Public opinion could not influence His Majesty against them, no matter how palpable the proof, for the reason that they had been faithful to him when it was beyond his power even to remunerate remunerate Remunerate.
Remunerate. Remunerate.
Remunerate. Interesting.
Remunerate.
Yo, I'm gonna start utilizing that. Remunerate. When it was beyond his power even to remunerate them for services already rendered. However commendable such sentiments may be in the private life, they will receive condemnation, absolutely, when indulged into the injury of the government. Facts. I'm not going to read this shit. This goes into what I was saying earlier, where when John Fenwick became a Quaker, joined the meeting of friends, uh, his hardships started. So anyway, back to these guys. I want to write down what happened to Carteret real quick. He became, what did it say? He was appointed Treasurer of Ireland, but no date for that. Excuse me. Oh shit, I almost dropped my tea. Uh, let's check out Wikipedia first before we check out. Oh, he may have had financial troubles too, right? Because he had fallen outs between other people. I think the governor of New York. I think Carteret himself. I think that's what we had read. Um, damn, he's kind of ugly. But he probably had financial troubles too. That's why he sold his share. Carteret, he held on to everything. I don't know if that was like just a business part of him or what. He held on to everything. He definitely held on to well, I don't know for sure actually. He definitely held on to his part of Jersey way longer than Berkeley did. And those 8 folks that we talked about that was given a portion of the Carolina Charter, it was all seven of the 8 sold their shares back to the crown a few years later, because I don't think it was really as big of a success as most of them were hoping it to be. But Carteret didn't sell his share, and his share stayed actually in the state all the way up to, I think his grandson had it. It was, I think, like the Greenville or Granville district in North Carolina. which I think is on the Virginia border, or was, or somewhere around there. I'm just going to read through this. Wikipedia. John Berkeley, 1st Baron Berkeley of Stratton, of Berkeley House in Westminster, and of Twickenham Park in Middlesex, was an English royalist soldier, politician, and diplomat of the Bruton branch of the Berkeley family. From 1648, he was closely associated with James, Duke of York, the future King James II. And rose to prominence, fortune, and fame. He and Sir George Carteret were the founders of the province of New Jersey, a British colony in North America that would eventually become the U.S. state of New Jersey. The territorial designation of his title refers to his role at the Battle of Stratton, Cornwall, in 1643, at which the Royalists destroyed Parliament's field army in Devon and Cornwall. Ooh, look at this. His younger brother, Sir William Berkeley, served as royal governor of the colony of Virginia from 1642 to 1652, and again from 1660 to 1677. John Berkeley was accredited ambassador from Charles I of England to Christina of Sweden. That is who. Christina was a member of the House of Vasa and the Queen of Sweden in her own right from 1632 until her abdication in 1654. Her conversion to Catholicism and refusal to marry led her to relinquish her throne and move to Rome. I think this is who in Delaware, the Christiana Mall. Christiana, I think, is named after her. I don't know if it's the Christiana River or the Christina River that goes through Christiana in Wilmington and maybe Newcastle. That's all named after her, I think, because before the English were here, like the Delaware Bay, the Delaware River, and the Delaware Shore and the Bay Shore, and the New Jersey Bay Shore was in possession. It went back and forth between Holland and Sweden. And I guess technically they were at war with each other, but what they had going on back and forth was, in my opinion, kind of elementary compared to when the English showed up and started like taking shit. After the English showed up, it never went back into the hands of Holland or Sweden, I believe. But I believe that there was, because Elsinboro in Salem County, the water covers it now, but there was originally either a Sweden or Dutch fort, I think. There was one up the river more. I think there was one over in the area of Newcastle, perhaps. Which Newcastle eventually became a English territory, and then later William Penn. So Lord Berkeley was ambassador between Charles I and Christina of Sweden. Hmm. Early life. It looks like he has some trouble here. Um, Berkeley returned from Sweden in July of 1637. He had a commission in the army against the Scots in 1638 and was knighted at Berwick in that year. What is that? 1638? He was knighted in 1638. In 1640, he was returned to Parliament for both Heytesbury and Reading, electing to retain his seat for the formal place. Next year, so I guess 41, he was accused in Parliament of complicity in the army plots, expelled from the House, and committed to the Tower of London. He was subsequently bailed by Edward Sackville, 4th Earl of Dorset, and Henry Grey, 1st Earl of Stamford, in the sum of £10,000, but the outbreak of hostilities prevented any further steps to be taken. First English Civil War. I don't really care about his life at this moment. Maybe later. I really just want to know what the hell he did. I'm going to read this really quickly. In 1644, Berkeley was present at the baptism of Henrietta Maria, which was the youngest daughter of the King Charles I of England and Queen Henrietta Maria. She was Duchess of Orleans through her marriage to Philip, first Duke of Orleans. The king's daughter was born at Exeter. The same year, Hopton and Berkeley joined the forces to oppose Sir William Waller's westward advance, but were badly beaten at the Battle of Sheraton near Alresford in Hampshire on the 29th of March. So he lost there. In January of 1646, Fairfax was able to concentrate on Exeter, which Berkeley was forced on the 13th of April to surrender on honorable terms. Involvement in the Hampton Court escape. Berkeley received the king's commands to attend him in his flight from Hampton Court on the night of 10th on the night of the 10th of November 1647. The party pushed on towards Hampshire and ultimately reached Leamington. Berkeley crossed the Solent and opened the matter to Robert Hammond, parliamentary governor of the Isle of Wight. Is that White or Wit? Which was the king's goal. Hammond was non-committal. The envoys then conducted Hammond to the king at Leamington, and an act later much criticized. Charles felt he had no choice but saw nothing for it but to accompany Hammond to Carisbrooke Castle. After this exploit, Berkeley returned to London, still bent on using his influence with the army. Being barely received by the officers and arraigned by Parliament as a delinquent, he returned to Paris. In 1652, he took over this particular. What is this? So I guess he took over this guy's position. John Byron, the post of temporary governor to the Duke of York in 1648, and on the death of Byron, 1652, took over the position. He acquired control of the Duke's finances and endeavored to bring about a match between the Duke and Marie de Longueville. Marie de Orleans Longueville. Interesting. But the French court refused approval. Berkeley himself paid court to Anne Villers. Damn, she turned him down. Oh, that's right. She turned him down because this guy also was part of the Carolina Charter, and Berkeley and Sir Edward Hyde did not like each other. Berkeley and Hyde became enemies. It was over that woman. Between 1652 and 1655, Berkeley served under Turenne and accompanied the Duke of York as a volunteer. Berkeley stayed with him through Spain, through Netherlands. Spring The following year, he made a tour with the Duke through some of the principal cities of the Netherlands, took part in the campaigns of that and the following year. At the request of the Duke, was raised to the peerage as Baron Berkeley of Stratton and Cornwall by a patent dated at Brussels 19 May 1658. I'm going to write that down. Damn, it's 1631. Wait, 1661. Appointed Lord President of the Connaught for life. This guy definitely kept being rewarded. And I don't really understand how he had money issues. 1663. Berkeley's personal relationships with Charles II and the Duke of York led to his receiving an interest in New Jersey. In addition to that, and Carolina previously received, that's the Carolina Charter. I think 1663. Berkeley was co-proprietor. This is the word I was trying to say earlier.
'Proprietor'.
Proprietor. I'm in business, baby. The owner of a business or a holder of property.
Proprietor.
Proprietor. All right. Proprietor. If you count the king and the Duke of York as the first two proprietors of New Jersey, then that makes these two guys, John Lord Berkeley and Sir George Carteret, the third, sharing the third
Proprietor.
proprietor. But I don't think that you would consider the king and the Duke of York a proprietor. Because they really like bestow those titles on the other people for their glory and benefit.
Proprietor.
Proprietor. Berkeley was a co-proprietor of New Jersey from 1664 to 1674. In 1665, Berkeley and Sir George Carteret drafted the Concessions and Agreement, a proclamation for the structure of the government for the province of New Jersey. The document also provided freedom of religion in the colony. Berkeley sold his share to a group of Quakers because of the political difficulties between New York Governor Richard Nicolls, Carteret, and himself. This effectively split New Jersey into two colonies, East Jersey, belonging to Carteret, and West Jersey. The division remained until 1702 when West Jersey went bankrupt. The Crown then took back and subsequently reunified the colony. Although John Berkeley held many distinguished offices, some authorities assert that at one time he was under a cloud in consequence of his being detected in the selling of offices and other corrupt practices. I don't know how to pronounce this name. Interesting. I guess this fellow has a diary that he kept for 10 years. That's probably pretty interesting. Samuel speaks of him as being esteemed a fortunate, though a passionate and but weak man as to policy, and the hottest fiery man in discourse without any cause he ever saw. Berkeley was notorious for spinning incredible tales of his exploits. Clarendon wrote that through constant retelling he may have come to believe them himself. So, he was compromised and full of himself. Anyway, that didn't really tell us much. How should we ask this? Bacon's Rebellion. Oh, that's about the little brother in Virginia. I bet you. This has nothing to do. See, this is a whole bunny trail. This has nothing to do with our research. Yep, Jamestown. So it's Virginia. Virginia Rebellion of 1676. The central figures in Bacon's rebellion were opposites Governor Sir William Berkeley, the little brother of John Berkeley, who was 70 when the crisis began, was a veteran of the English Civil Wars, a frontier Indian fighter, a king's favorite in his first term as governor in the 1640s, a playwright and scholar. Oh shit. Nathaniel Bacon Jr. was actually Berkeley's cousin by marriage. Anyway, that's none of our business. We're up here in Jersey.
Proprietor.
It's not even the same person. Samuel Pepys. I don't know how to say his last name. I have no idea. Anyway, his diary in 1660, July the 2nd. Infinite of business that my heart and head and all were full. Met with pursuer Washington, with whom and a lady, a friend of his. I dined at the Bell Tavern in King Street, but the rogue had no... Is that rogue? Yeah, rogue. Yeah, had no more manners than to invite me and to let me pay my club. All the afternoon with my lord going up and down the town. At 7 at night he went home, and there the principal officers of the Navy, among the rest myself, was reckoned one. We had order Does it say anything about Berkeley? Ooh, Sir William Penn. That was William Penn's father, I believe, actually. Admiral William Penn. Yeah, that was his daddy. But anyway, at 7 o'clock, we went home and there were principal officers of the Navy. So, okay, John Lord Berkeley was here. Among the rest, myself was reckoned when we had ordered to meet tomorrow to draw up such an order of the council as would put us into action before our patents were passed, at which my heart was glad. At night, supped with my lord, he and I together in the great dining room alone by ourselves. The first time I ever did it in London. Home to bed, my maid pretty well again. On July 11th, with Sir William Penn by water to Navy office where we met and dispatched business. I'm definitely not reading all this. This is interesting though. I want to get past this. I'm assuming that we get a lot of information about Berkeley through this diary. This guy seemed to like him at one point. I am going to read this actually, just not tonight. It's a biography of John Berkeley, 1st Baron Berkeley, 1602-1678, on allabouthistory.co.uk. Yeah, for another time. I'm actually going to save this for later. All right. I know there's probably a better way to ask this. Oh, maybe this was it. John Lord Berkeley, also known as the 1st Baron Berkeley of Stratton, was considered to have done wrong due to accusations of corruption, including selling public offices and engaging in other questionable practices. which were widely known and even commented on by contemporaries like Samuel Pepys. He was also criticized for being overly passionate and prone to exaggerate in his exploits and stories he told. Selling offices. Some sources claim that Berkeley was found to be selling government positions for the personal gain, a serious offense at the time. I mean, still is. Definitely still is. Exaggerated tales. Contemporary accounts describe Berkeley as someone who would spin elaborate stories about his achievements, potentially to the point of believing them himself. Political reputation. While he held significant positions, his reputation was often tarnished by accusations of corruption and questionable behavior. Oh, that's the same thing as Wiki. It's interesting. Man, there was so much trouble. This is why I say John Fenwick was just kind of doomed from the start. Here's a little bit here. The Colonel Nichols, or the Governor Nichols of New York, he actually caused, between him and Governor Ambrose, caused Fenwick a lot of trouble and arrested him on a few occasions. John Fenwick even had to go all the way back to England and meet with Parliament, or meet with the King, or meet with someone to try to straighten it all out. The Duke of York sold his rights in the territory of New Jersey to Lord Berkeley and Sir George Carteret. They found already here another British governor, Colonel Nichols, who had not been told by the Duke of York of his sale of New Jersey. Nichols called New Jersey Albania. He thought highly of it and protested the sale in no uncertain terms, but without avail. Conflicting claims of the titles to the lands arose by reason of grants, which had been made by Colonel Nichols, and also through purchases from the Indians and the old titles acquired under Dutch and Swedish rule. Berkeley became alarmed regarding his investment and sold out his entire interest in March of 1673 to John Fenwick and Edward Billinge, two Quakers living in England for pounds cash. I think, and I could be wrong, this might be speculation, we'll figure it out as we go. I believe that Colonel Nichols or Governor Nichols, or Nichols, Nichols, I don't know. I think he had a personal interest in New Jersey, and that's really like why he held on to all those old. I don't know. Like here, titles acquired under Dutch and Swedish rule. Because he put up a fight with these two guys, Carteret and Berkeley, apparently. He put up a fight with Fenwick. I'm pretty sure that William Penn had to, I don't know if they had to sit down, exchange. They had to figure something out with each other, too. Edward Billing. This guy's name is spelled so many different ways. A prominent Quaker who would have partnered John Fenwick bought John Berkeley's share. He appears 3 times in a diary in 1660, once again in 1667. You see all these different spelling of his name. See, William Penn arbitrated a dispute between Billing and his New Jersey colony partner, John Fenwick, and later bought out Billing's share. I think that's when Fenwick was left with the Salem 10th. So, I'm gonna actually wrap it up here. We only got to John Lord Berkeley. I'm definitely gonna read that one page there, the biography on, what was that website called? allabouthistory.co.uk. Biography of John Berkeley, 1st Baron Berkeley. I'm gonna probably check that out in the next couple weeks. Actually, I'm probably not gonna read it on the stream though, unless there's like key notes I want to archive. So yeah, Lord Berkeley. We know that he was accused of selling offices and government positions. He was full of himself and a liar, exaggerator, a one-upper probably. He was probably a one-upper. He was probably so annoying. Every time all the MPs see him walking into Parliament, they're probably like, ugh. Every time they told a story, he had one better. I bet. And he had a bad political reputation. The next stream, before we move on in the book, we're going to jump into Sir George Carteret, his story, which I think will be a lot easier to find all his skeletons because well, you'll see. So yeah, he was doing all this not great stuff, disgraceful stuff. Apparently he was bad with money if he needed money, and which is, I don't understand that, because one, he had all these titles, he probably had tons of assets with those titles. He was in charge of the Duke of York's finances. Unless it had something to do with that had made them have a falling out. And all the while he was doing all this, he was still getting more and more titles and authorities and all that jazz. So there's that, I guess. But still, even with all this bad, I think he's probably just a drop in the bucket compared to Sir George Carteret. But we'll get into that next time. Alright, see you guys.